The research for my book is taking me into all sectors of the community: business, politics, the arts, medicine, schools, churches, the river, the lake, the land. Working with me is a motley crew of Clevelanders, gatekeepers to the city. They include the head of the city's largest philanthropic organization, the top brain surgeon at the Cleveland Clinic, a flute player who sits at the center of the orchestra, an innovator in health-related technology, a true believer in industrial manufacturing, the dean of Cleveland's oldest religious congregation, a team of athletes who are tearing up the NBA, a pioneer in urban restaurants, a quiet mayor, an angry councilman, a 13-year-old inner-city boy, an ex-con who has the dream of building a winery in Huff, and more. The list is threatening to become a cast of thousands as every day I run into another Clevelander who really loves this place, who really wants to make a difference in it. Despite this crazy winter and the Cavs' loss to the Lakers and the Pacers, there really is a lot going on here to crow about. A lot of it didn't exist when I was growing up here, when Cleveland's population was double what it is today. There is, of course, the phenomenal first-class health facilities, the clinic, UH, Metro, the concentration of which should be the envy of the world. The metro parks that ring the city have become even more beautiful and hospitable to weekend recreation. The stock of fine and affordable housing in safe neighborhoods with excellent schools, the old fine suburbs, Lakewood, Cleveland Heights, Shaker Heights, that have retained their graciousness while embracing racial and ethnic diversity. There are 2 riveting Major League sports teams and 1 not-so-riveting Major League sports team. The city has never enjoyed so many good restaurants, and you don't have to call 3 weeks ahead for a table. Few cities this size are so painlessly accessible in all directions. Just try getting into downtown Chicago from the North Shore during rush hour. Every day, the Art Museum seems to grow more magnificent as its beautifully done renovation and expansion take shape. The Cleveland Orchestra has never sounded better, not even in the days of George Zell. And those are my days. If you think it's not the envy of other cities, just ask the people who heard it in Salzburg last summer or in Carnegie Hall last week. Perhaps Cleveland's greatest asset was summed up to me by a newcomer, Carol Geyer, who moved here a few years ago from the San Francisco Bay Area with her husband David, a marketing executive at Baker Hostetler. When I asked Carol what she liked most about Cleveland, she thought for a moment and then said, "It's the people." Those 3 words should be the city's slogan, not the silly Cleveland Plus, which sounds like a new phone service. So much for Toledo, Akron, Canton, and Youngstown. As a longtime New Yorker, I'm constantly astonished by the civility of Clevelanders. Join in a crowd of thousands streaming into the queue, and you're never jostled, trampled, or stampeded the way you are at Madison Square Garden. In Cleveland, nobody honks if you're caught daydreaming when the light turns green. Ask a clerk at Heinen's where the mayonnaise is, and he'll walk you to it. However, something is missing. Something that I think is fundamental to the reinvention of Cleveland. I first sensed this when I interviewed the former mayor, Jane Campbell, for the New Yorker article. We need a new mentality if we're going to turn things around, she said. We've been thinking of Cleveland as a special problem when we need to be thinking of it as part of a regional problem. Greater Cleveland has a population of 3 million, but it's all fragmented. We've got to start connecting the dots. I know you hear the word regional, and as Joseph Goebbels said about the word culture, you want to reach for your revolver. Yes, I believe, as I'm sure most of you believe, that Cleveland's progress is being seriously retarded by the multitude of competing towns and hamlets throughout the region, with its wasteful duplication of services, encouragement of poaching, and fortress mentality. I'm sorry, Moreland Hills, but do you really need to exist all on your own? As in many cities of the same age, there are way too many municipal silos here. It reminds me of what happened a few years ago in my former town of Sharon, Connecticut, the state that gave the Western Reserve its template of excessive local control. A fire broke out at the house of a neighbor, a former governor's mansion built in 1750. 5 local fire departments rushed to the scene, but since their equipment was incompatible, all they could do was stand there and watch the house burn down. Cleveland hasn't reached that critical stage yet, but it is being crippled by many incompatibilities that have burrowed in to keep the city and the region from connecting the dots. In terms of admitting people of diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds into the upper echelons of life, of civic life, the city has come a long way since my childhood, when Jews were prohibited from buying a house on my road in Pepper Pike. And the city rightly honors the memory of Carl Stokes' election as the first black mayor of a major American city. Yet a meeting I attended shortly after returning to Cleveland illustrates the continuing gulf between blacks and whites. The setting was the boardroom of one of the major banks. The discussion concerned efforts to advance minority-owned businesses in the region. The seating arrangement, spontaneously achieved, was remarkable. On one side of the table, the faces were all black. On the other side, they were all white. After the meeting ended, the presiding banker asked me what I thought of the discussion. "If you want to make real progress," I said, "you should hire a social director." From the look on his face, the fact that he had set a segregated table had never occurred to him. Maybe it's the effect of too many years in New York, where officials are on continuous alert about racially tinged violence, but I've been dismayed by the inability of Cleveland's elected officials to confront race when a racial conflict flares up. After Kevin McDermott, a white lawyer, was brutally assaulted by black Cleveland teenagers a year ago on New Year's Eve as he jogged in his integrated neighborhood in Shaker Heights, the plain dealer, I'm told, was flooded with emails expressing outrage in the ugliest racial terms. Yet I heard not a peep of concern from Cleveland City Hall. The silence was deafening, and the city was left to fume. Another impediment in connecting the dots, deeply ingrained here as elsewhere, is an aversion to transparency. 2 massive new projects that stand out as classic cases where open-door discussions were sacrificed for closed-door deal-making. One is the Port Authority's billion-dollar proposal to create a new container port along the lake between East 55th and East 72nd Streets. The project began nearly 3 years ago with a commendable town meeting to suggest ideas about reshaping the lakefront and improving access to adjacent neighborhoods. Significantly, the program was entitled Connecting Cleveland, the Waterfront District Plan. Since then, the Port Authority has held 2 further public meetings about its plan. But something happened between the first rosy-eyed one, which promised all sorts of improvements in the existing marina and parks, and the second meeting held last June, in which it was revealed that most of those improvements had mysteriously vanished. On February 8, Crane's Cleveland business paper published a brilliant letter by an appropriately outraged Clevelander, Ken Vinciguerra of Cleveland Heights. Mr. Vinciguerra rightly asks, what happened, as well as a host of other pertinent questions. He calls for the plan to be brought before the public in, quote, an honest and open forum for rational debate on the merits. He is still waiting for an answer. Then there's the never-ending soap opera of the Medical Mart and its Siamese twin, the Convention Center. After imposing a tax increase to pony up money for the project without allowing, to quote Mr. Vinciguerra again, an honest and open forum for rational debate on the merits, the county commissioners announced out of the blue that they had chosen to put the project on the mall alongside public auditorium rather than behind Tower City or in the flats. Apart from the alleged lower price tag of the mall, the commissioners didn't share any other factors in their decision, such as how the project would be engineered and connected to the rest of downtown and the lakefront. When the plain dealer asked with temerity for more information, Commissioner Tim Hagan angrily denounced the paper as cynical. I'm not debating the merits of the commissioner's choice. It seems to make a lot of sense.